What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. This video is tailored towards Django beginners that want to learn how to build a full stack Django app from scratch. So the app we're going to be building is this notes app here, where we can see a list of our notes. We can add a note just like this. We can also edit it and we can delete it. So it's got the whole CRUD functionality, which is create, read, update, and delete. And it's also going to be connected to a PostgresSQL database. So this is going to teach you all the core concepts about Django, and after this video you're going to be able to go away and build a full stack Django app by yourself. So if this video does help you in any way, could you please subscribe to the channel and like the video, as it helps me a lot. And with that all said, let's actually start building it. I'm in my Visual Studio Code and I've got my terminal open. The first thing we want to do is install Django. So in your terminal, just run the command pip3 install Django. And that's going to install for you. I've already done it, so it's just going to say it's already done. But once you've installed it, then we need to actually set up Django, okay? And the way it's set up is that it's going to have a Django project, and then inside that project, we're going to have a Django app. So we need to build them separately. So to start things off, we'll create our Django project, and we do that by running the command Django admin start project, and then you give our project a name. In our case, we'll call it my app. You can call it anything. And then go into my app, so cd into my app, and then we need to create our Django app, okay? So you can see this is our Django project with the file and folder in here. And then in my app, we're going to run the command python3 manage.py. Now calling this manage.py, this contains loads of Django functions which we need. Okay, so calling this, we're going to use the function start app, which is going to build our Django app. And we give that a name as well, which we just call base. Okay. So we have our new Django app base. And we also have this default folder called my app in our Django project, which has a lot of configuration files, okay? So when we're starting out building a Django app, the first thing you want to do is go to your settings.py file. Just bring this down. And you're going to scroll down to installed apps. And you want to add the Django app we just created called base, okay? So to do that, we just go in this array and then add the name of our Django app called base. And that's it, okay? So that's the settings.py file done. We can close that. The one more thing we need to do to set up configuration is you see this urls.py file here. We want to create another one in our Django app, okay? And then to save time, we can just copy and paste from our my app urls.py file, as they're going to be very similar. Let's get rid of this, okay? And this file is just going to be where we create the roots for our pages that list our notes, create our notes, update our notes, and delete our notes, okay? And then in this file, this is where we're gonna basically connect our base urls.py file, as this isn't connected to our project at the moment. And to connect it, we need to import something called include. Then we're gonna create a path with an empty string, and we're gonna include our base.urls file, okay, just like that. And that's all the configuration we need for the start, so we can just close that. Now we want to start building our Django app. So the first thing we need to do is actually create a model, and if you go into models.py for my app, we're going to create a note model, okay? And a model is basically like a data blueprint. It's going to define what the note should have. For example, our note is just going to have a description, so what we type into the note, okay, just like note 1. So to create a model, we need to give it a name. So it's going to be class note, which is the name of our model. Inside the brackets, we do models.model from what we imported here. And then we need to give it its attributes after this. And like I said, we only have one, so it's going to be the description. You need to say what data type it is. So it could be an integer, a boolean, or a character. So as this is going to be like letters, it's going to be a character field. So char field, and you also need to state the maximum length of characters it will have. So in our case, we'll just say 300. So that's our model created. Every time we create a model in Django, we need to migrate it into our database, okay? So you see we've got this migrations folder. What we're going to do is we're going to run the command python3 manage.py make migrations. And it's going to add some migrations into this folder. just like this. Okay, you can see it added our note model. So it's created those migrations, but we need to actually migrate it into our database. So we'll do python3 manage.py migrate. You can see it's gonna migrate all those migrations. Okay, so we always make migrations and then migrate them. Now, what we want to do next is we want to create the list of notes page, okay, where we got the list of all the notes. But the problem at the moment is that we haven't got any data in our database. We haven't got any notes actually in our database. So a way to fix that is we can head over to something called python3 manage.py shell. Let's run this command. It's going to take you to a Python shell, and in here we can add some data to our database, add some notes to our database. So first of all, we need to import our model. So from base.models, which is this file here, import note, and then we're going to create some data. So data, the note model is going to have a description, let's say note 1, and then we need to save that into our database. Okay, so data.save, and that should have worked. So with some data in our database, we can actually run our app. So if we do python3 manage.py run server, this is actually going to run our app, and you can see we're running on here. Okay, and yeah, and it's just going to give you this default Django page here, as we haven't actually made any routes yet. So like I said, we're going to start building the list of notes page. So to begin with everything, we're going to create the first HTML page. So we'll close this, and in Django, the way we set up is in our base folder, we're going to create a folder called templates, and this is going to hold all of our HTML pages. Okay, so the first one we're creating is list notes.html. So we can create this, and if I just do HTML boilerplate, just bring this down for you guys, we'll create a basic HTML page with a title, so h1, and then we'll just say notes list. Okay, the thing is, we're not actually calling this HTML page from anywhere, as we need to make a route which is going to call to this HTML page, but we can't just create a URL that calls this HTML page. We create a URL that calls a view which calls our HTML. So first of all, we need to create this view which calls our HTML page. So in your views.py file, we want to import something called ListView, which is going to allow to list data from our database. So we're going to do from Django.views.generic import ListView. Okay, and then we also want to import our model. So from models import note, and then we can create our view class. So we'll do class note list. We'll pass in list view, and then in our view we need to pass in the model we're going to be listing. So that's our note. We also need to put in the template we're going to be showing, so the HTML page we're going to be showing, which is going to be list_notes.html. And then we also need to pass in the model we're going to be passing to our front end, which is going to be our note. Okay, and we're passing in all of our notes. Okay, just a list of all of our notes. So we use the function def get query set. So we don't need any of that, just go with that. And then we're going to return all the notes from our database. Okay, all. And we also want to have them in order by their ID. So we have the newest notes at the top. Okay, so it's just like this, order by -ID. One more thing we need to do in this view is we're going to call it by going, say, notes in here, right? So we're going to call notes, but at the moment there's no way to call notes as we haven't gave our object a name. So we actually have to give our object a name, and we'll call it notes. Okay, so the list is going to be called notes, and then we can grab these notes in our HTML page, just like that. So with that done, we need to actually call our view so that we can show it on our browser. So we head into urls.py, we're gonna import our new view, so note list, and then we'll create a path. We'll leave it at the home page, and then we'll do note list. We have to do .asView, okay. Also give our path a name. We'll do note_list, and that should all be working. So when we refresh this page, you can see we get our note list. So that's set up correctly, but at the moment we're not actually listing any notes. So the way we do that is we're going to go into our list notes.html page, okay, and we're going to list our notes. So the way we do that is we're going to create a for loop, which is going to go through all the notes we've got here and then show some HTML of each note, okay. So to create a for loop in Django HTML is we're going to do these squirrely brackets, going to put some percentages in them, and we do for note in notes, and then you need to close your for loop, so you do end for. So this is what a for loop looks like in Django. So for note in notes, we want to show the text of our note, okay, so the note description. So you remember, if you go into our model, you can see each note has a description, so we want to show the note.description. And when we refresh here, you'll see we have the note 1 we created in our Python shell. So that's our note list page. As we go, we can style it later, but just to show you the core functionality, the next thing I want to do is to be able to create a note from a HTML page, okay? So if we go back into our code, we can just delete these so far. The next thing I want to do is create a new HTML page called create note.html. We'll do create note.html. I'm also going to create a form class, okay? And a form class is going to allow us to build forms really easily in Django and just submit notes and then create a new note really easily, okay? So the way we do that is we create a new file called forms.py. Then from Django, import forms. And then we also want to import our model, because it's going to be a model, it's going to be a form for our model. So from.models import note. And then we're going to create a form class, so it's going to be note form, forms.model form inside of here. You need to write class meta, and then pass in the model we're going to be using, okay, which is going to be our note. Then we also need to state the fields that are going to be in our form. So we only have one field, which is going to be our description. So we'll do, they should need to enter a description, okay. So that's our form created. With that, we can build our view for our creator notes, okay. So now because we're creating a note, we're not going to be using ListView. We're going to be using something called CreateView, which is going to allow us to create notes, post them into our database. So we'll do class note CreateView, and then we're going to pass in a model, which is going to be our note. We need to import our new form. So import note form. So we pass in form class. It's going to be our note form. We also need to give a template name, which is going to be our create notes.html. Okay, so we got this view. It's giving us our form to create a note. It's also showing our HTML page, which we're going to create a note with. And then when we create this note, okay, when we press create note, what we want to happen is we want to be taken back to our list of notes page, okay. And the way we can do that is importing something from Django.urls import reverse lazy. So on success, which we use success URL, we're going to reverse lazy to the name of the path we want to go to. So the name of the path we want to go to is note list. Okay. So what this does on success, we're going to go back to this page, and this is what the reverse lazy does. It's going to take us to this notes list page. So if I go to URLs, we're going to create a new path. So we need to import note create. This time it's going to be create, and then we'll do note create dot as view, and then note underscore create. Okay. So if we go here, we'll just create a new one. We'll do /create. Template does not exist at create. Template name. Create notes. That's why. Create note. View. There you see it works here. And then we can just copy and paste this into our create notes. Just delete that. Note create. And you can see it has this here, okay? So what I want to do is I want to create our form so that we can create a new note, right? So if I do form, okay, and then close this here, and then I'm going to create a text area. Which is going to be our input for our description, okay? And then we create a button, which we're going to add our note with, okay? So this is going to be type submit, as we're submitting something. So we're submitting our form, and then we're going to add note. Then in here, we need to give it a name, which is going to be the attribute we're adding. So you can see we're going to be doing the description. So we'll give it a name of description, and then whatever we type in here and when we press, it's gonna create our note with that description, okay? But it's not actually doing anything at the moment. Our form isn't doing anything, so we need to give it an action. Just gonna have URL, and then sorry, you need to put some percentage signs here. So action equals, you got these quotes, and then the swirly brackets with percentages in, and then the URL is going to be the name of our create path, okay? So we did note create. So if you go to create notes, okay, so action is going to be create this note, and then we need to say what type of request it's going to be. So the method is going to be post. So if I refresh this, we got our text area, we got our add note. So let's say note 2. When I click this, it should add a note and then send us back to our notes list page, okay? Okay, this is actually good, this error came up. So in Django, every form needs to be CSRF valid, okay? So to do that in Django, what we do is we go to our form, we add this swirly bracket tag here, and we just add CSRF token. Oh, should be like that. There you are. So next time we do this, to refresh the page here, go to, and you can see it takes us back to this page, and we've got our new note here, note 2. But one problem we've got at the moment is that we can't actually get to our create page without going to the URL and type in create, right? So I want to have a navigation to be able to go to our create page and to be able to go to our list notes page. But I don't want to every time create a new navigation in our create notes and then have to create into list notes or whatever. So what we do in Django is we create a base.html file, which is going to be used across all the files, okay? So if we create a base.html file, which has this head, this HTML, this doc type HTML, but the only thing we change is the body, because that's the only thing that's ever changing. We keep these the same, and we'll also keep our navbar the same as well, so we don't need to type it every time. And this is saving code, okay? So what we do is we create a new file called Base.html, and I'll copy and paste this. I can just get rid of that, okay? So this is always going to be the same, but we want to add some content in this body tag. So the way we do that is we create something called a block. So we do the same thing. We have percentage times. We have a block, and we give our block a name. So we'll call it content, and then I'll do end block. So we always have to end everything. So at the moment we got this, and then we have all our changed code in this block, okay? So the way we do this is we can go to our creates notes. I can delete all this. And then we need to actually use this block, we need to extend our base.html file, okay? And now we've extended it, we can add our block. Oh, sorry. So we got our block. So it's like we've taken this code and then shoved it in this block here. So when we refresh, you can see it's going to work. And we'll do the same for our list notes, okay? So just copy and paste this. Don't want any of that. And then we can just copy and paste this in here. Okay. It's going to be the same for our notes list, okay? Now, we've got this base.html file. We can create a navbar in here so that every page has this navbar that extends base.html. So we'll create a navbar, just like div, and we'll have an a tag. Okay, so yeah, we'll have an a tag. And then in here, we'll have a h1, which goes to our menu. Okay, so we'll say notes. And then we'll have another a tag that goes to our add note. Okay. And then to do this a tag, right, we create a href. And then we do the same thing like we did with the form. Is that we create a URL and we're going to send it to the path we want, okay? So we go to urls.py, we're going to send this to our notes list, and it's going to send it to us when we click this, all right? And then we'll do the same here, but it's going to take us to our note create. We can copy and paste that there. So when I refresh, okay, I'm just going to make these H2s so they're a bit smaller, okay? H2. There you go. So this is our header, our navbar. So when I click add note, it's going to take us to our add note. When I click notes, it's going to take us to our notes, okay? So we can easily get between the two now. Just get rid of that. So now we create our navbar, we can create a new note just like this. Take us back to our notes page, and yeah, we've got the list of them. The next thing we need to do is create a page so that we can edit a note, okay? So the standard thing we always do is that we create a new template called we'll call it edit_note.html, and then we always need to create a view that corresponds to this, okay? So we'll do reader import UpdateView instead of create, as we're updating it. Then we can do a class called note update. It's going to be an update view. And then the model we're going to be updating is our note model. We need to add our form class. Note form class, there you go. going to be note form. And then we also need to add our template name. It's going to be edit note.html. And then we're going to add our success URL. So we can just copy and paste that. It's going to take us back to our notes list. And then this time we actually need to give our another context object name, as we're going to be passing our note which we're updating through. Okay, so we've created this view. Now next thing I want to do is create another URL. It's going to do no update. So if I just copy and paste this one, add that comma there, we'll change this to update, this to our new update view, and then no update. Okay, but the difference with this URL is that we need to add the notes ID so that we can specifically update that individual note. Okay, and the way we do that is that we pass the ID through the URL, and to do that we write it like this. Okay, so we store it in these, and then we pass in the primary key, which means it's ID, and then the primary key is in the form of an integer. Okay, so it'll be like 1 or 2, for example. Okay, so we're calling the URL. That means if we go to /update/1, okay, yeah, we haven't got anything there, so we need to put some HTML in. So if we copy the create, okay, we call this, and we can actually just build it up straight away. So we'll do no update. It's going to be a form again with the description, except this time we're going to pass in the text error. We'll pass in the note.description, because this is the description it's already going to have, and that's going to be in the input field. And we don't want to create it, we want to update it. So in the URL we said no update. So we can just say no update here instead, and then we're updating the note. And that should be it. So if I refresh this, see reverse no update with no arguments not found. Oh, okay, that's why. Because with this we have to actually pass in the note ID at the end, because we're calling this this path, but we also have to add the ID at the end. So if we go back here, we're going to do note.id. Okay, so it's calling the update function with this note's ID, so we're updating this ID when we call it. Okay, you can see it works this time. So at the moment, if we go to /update/1, you can see this is the first one in there. That's why we have the description for note 1. If we update this to note 4, for example, and press this, it's going to take us back to the note list and then update it to note 4. Okay, so we successfully did that. Now we have the same issue. We can't get to the note update until we actually type it in the URL. So we're going to have to add it to our code. So we'll go to our list notes, and then for note in notes, so in this for loop, we'll do the note description, but we'll also pass in an A tag so that we can go to the edit page. Okay, so we'll just call it edit. If you refresh that, and we actually have to call the page we're going to, so href equals, put our percentages in the URL, and we're going to note update. Okay, and we have to pass in the note.id. There you are. So if we want to edit this one again, you can see note 4, you can go back to the notes. If we want to edit note 3, we can make that note 5, update, and that becomes note 5. We can update note 2 to note 6. Okay, you can see this all works. Now we have one more thing to create, which is we want to be able to delete our notes if we don't want it anymore. So let's go back to our code. First thing we always do is we create a new template. You see the pattern here. we delete underscore note.html, and then just like the others, the next thing we're gonna do is go to our views. We're going to now import DeleteView and create a new class called noteDelete, okay? And it's gonna be a DeleteView. Pass in our model, the template name, which is delete underscore note dot html, and then same thing as always, success URL. We're gonna go to the notes list, and then we also have to pass in our context object name as note, okay? So if we add a URL, so we want to import note delete, then it's going to be almost exact to this update. As we're calling a specific note, we want to keep this in here. We're just going to change it to delete. We're going to change this to note delete, change this to note underscore delete, okay? And then straight away we'll just build out our delete note, go to our edit note, just copy in that. And then we can do notes delete, and then what we'll do is we'll get rid of this. This should just be a button instead. And that's gonna call note delete with the ID, and that should be it. So let's add it to our list. So we'll add one of these, but it will be going to the delete this time. So if we refresh this, you can see now we've got a delete. So if I want to delete note number 5, it's going to take me to this page here where we want to, oh, note delete, there you go. And then we want to delete note. Okay. Let's make it look a bit better. And then if we press that, you can see that it is no longer in our list. And we can actually just delete that one as well. So we only got one more in our list now. So that's all the functionality for our Django app. The next thing we want to do is connect our app to a PostgreSQL database, because the default database Django uses is not very good practice. It's using SQLite at the moment, yeah, and we want to change to PostgreSQL. So to do that, we need to head back to our code, and we're going to create a new terminal. Just bring this up here. Now, I'm using Mac, so if you're using Windows, you're going to have to download Postgres from the website and then install it there. But with Mac, you can just install Postgres doing brew install Postgres, okay? So if you've got Mac, do it that way. If you're using Windows, download it from just your browser. Once you have it downloaded, we're going to go into the Postgres terminal by doing psql-u, your username, which you use to download, and then you will type in Postgres, okay? And that's going to open the Postgres shell like this, okay? So once you see this, you want to create a database. If you're not using Homebrew, just create a database using the Postgres you downloaded. So to do in the terminal, we do create database, and we'll call it my_app_db, okay? And then make sure you put a semicolon at the end. You say it's going to create database. And that is all what we need to do in the terminal. So once you've created your database, no matter how you do it, what we need to do before we actually change to Postgres, we need to store our data. Because at the moment we've got this note 6, okay? So we've got this note 6 here. And if we just change to Postgres, right, from our SQL, all our data is going to be removed. And at the moment, it's not a big issue because we've only got one data, right? But imagine you have thousands and thousands of data of important information, which you can't lose. So what we're going to do is we're going to store our data in a JSON file. And the way we can do that in Python is if we go into our my app folder, because at the moment I'm not in it. And then what we're going to do is we can do python 3 manage.py dump data. So this is going to dump all the data from your database, and then you have to choose what you want to put it into. So I'm going to put it into a JSON file called DB. Dump data. Sorry about that. There you go. CC is going to create this file called db.json, and if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see it has our base.note model with our note 6 we have here. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is actually change our database to Postgres. So if you go to the Django documentation, Django Postgres database, we can go scroll down here. You want to copy this, head to your settings.py file, bring this down, and then find databases. Okay, so at the moment the default is SQLite free. We're just going to copy and paste this and then make some changes, so we don't need this option here. What we need to do is get the name of the database, all caps, which was MyApp_DB. We need to say the host we're using, which is localhost, and then the port we're running on. Sorry, localhost. The port we're running on, which Postgres uses 5432. Okay. So we've changed our database. What we need to do is we need to migrate all our migrations, because that's what we have our migrations folder here, and we can just migrate everything. So python3 manage.py migrate. You see it's going to migrate all of these, and now we've migrated it, we can actually put all our data which we had from our previous database in by doing python3 manage.py load data, because we dumped it before, load data from our db.json. You can say it installed 36 objects and 1 fixture. We go here and refresh, you can see we've still got the data, but now we're using a Postgres database. So yeah, that's how we do that, by using a Postgres database. The next thing I want to do is show you how to add styling to our page, because at the moment it's very boring. So to add CSS files, just get rid of this. We're going to go to base. I'm going to create a new folder called static. And here we can create a folder for CSS, and you could also create a folder for JavaScript like this. Just a folder called JS. But we're not going to create any JavaScript for this tutorial. So we'll create a CSS file called style.css. And the way we call this is in our base.html file. We're going to add a link for style sheet, and it's going to be in like this. So we add the swirly brackets, add the percentages, and then we put static, and then where our folder is in our static file, so css/style.css. So once we've actually added our style sheet, what we need to do is at the top of our HTML page, we always need to do this with Django, you need to load your static files into your app. Okay, so you do that by just putting this load static tag up here, which is going to load all the files and folders in your static folder here. Okay, so now we've loaded in our style.css file, let's actually create some styling. So go to your style.css, we can call the body tag, we'll make sure it covers the whole width of the screen and the whole height of the screen. And then we want everything to like be on top of each other in vertically in order. So we'll do inline flex, make sure they're on top of each other vertically, so column. And then we want everything to be in the center, so align items center. And then we'll also give this a margin top of 20 pixels. Okay, so we'll just restart our server and then refresh, and you see our navbar's in the center, and we've got our note here. Okay, I'll add one more styling, so we'll go to our list notes, say I put a div around here, div here, and we say the class is called note. And then we can go to our style, do .note, and we can always do the same thing. Display, we'll just do display flex. We'll have everything in a row. We'll put everything in our thing in center. And then if you go here, there you go. You can see we'll just add a gap of like equals 10 pixels. Refresh that. There you go. So we have a list of all our notes. We can add a note 7, and you can see we're gonna have the list here. I'm not gonna go through all the styling I added at the start with the introduction because this isn't really Django related. But if you want to check out my GitHub, all the styling is going to be on there if you want to replicate the exact app. So yeah, this has been our Django tutorial. This video did help you. Please subscribe to the channel and like the video. And I hope you can go on to build some Django projects on your own. So once we've actually added our style sheet, what we need to do is at the top of our HTML page, we always need to do this with Django,